Good morning to one and all. This is Dr. P. Lavanya, working as Associate Professor in MBA Department and Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, Dundigal, Hyderabad. Today we are relating to the topic of definitions and different types of terminology, what we used in the business economics. So in that we comes across the module of 3, where in case of theory of demand and supply. So in this, what are the different types of definitions and new words or the terminology used, we can identify in this video. So the first across will come, recall about the consumer goods. So as we know, the consumer means is the person who purchases or buys the goods. So the consumer goods refer to such products or services which are capable of satisfying the human needs. Means the goods which have been produced, maybe the services which has to be give maximum need or requirement or satisfy the different wants of the human beings, we'll call it as consumer goods. What is demand? So demand means, it will call it like a desire. Demand is a desire. So demand on the part of the buyer to buy means, demand means according to the buyer, he want what he want to buy and what he was willing to pay, and ability to pay at a specific price for it. Means demand is desire or intention of the consumer, which will add his willingness, means expressed to purchase that product, and ability means purchasing power. Money, enough money should be there in order to purchase that goods. That we'll call as ability or purchasing power at a specific price, we'll consider as demand. Desire plus willingness plus ability to purchase, we can call it as demand. Discuss the meaning of law of demand. So the law of demand states the relationship between the price and demand of a particular product or service. Means here we can express there is an inverse relationship between the price and demand of a particular product or service. We'll call it as law of demand. Means what side of positive or negative relation, some relation. The effect or the factors will be changed due to the increase of the price, or maybe change in the particular price or services of a product or service. Means law of demand states that a particular relation between the price and a demand of goods and services called as a law of demand. Write a short notes on demand function. Demand function is a function which describes the relationship between one variable and its determinants. Function means it is a relationship which describes maybe one word. Maybe we'll take a demand function. We'll take one variable, that is the price of the product, and how that price changes due to the factors of demand, different factors of demand that will be expressed in one relation, which we'll call it as demand function. Means taking the relationship between one variable factor and its determinant factors, call it as demand function. Extend the meaning of elasticity of demand. So elasticity of demand, it is the rate of responsiveness in a demand of a commodity for a given change in the price and or any other determinants of demand. Means a responsiveness of change, means differentiation in the demand. Maybe when we compare to the last demand and now, means a change will be happen on the commodities demand due to change in the price or its other determinants, maybe like income, maybe the consumer taste preferences, or maybe the complementary goods or the substitute goods. Means the change in the demand will be takes place, or we are able to make a change in the demand by changing its price or determinant. Recall consumer goods. So already we know the consumer goods refers to the product and services which are capable of satisfying the human needs. Means when the goods which are satisfies the individual or human beings requirements or the needs in their daily life or maybe in the production of goods and services, we'll call it as consumer goods. What are producer goods? The goods which are used for further production process of goods and services to earn income, we'll call it as producer goods. Consumer goods means satisfaction of individual demand, we'll call it as consumer goods. But producer goods means the goods which are produced to satisfy the consumer. Means further processing, they are considered as raw materials or inputs in the production. The processing of those inputs will process the further and able to produce the goods and services in order to earn some sort of revenue or income. Define forecasting. So forecasting means like a prediction or looking about the future. So forecasting helps us to assess the demand of the product and services and to plan accordingly. Means thinking or assessing the future demand of the product such that which will helpful to us in future planning of that product production or distribution. We'll call it as forecasting. What do you mean by demand forecasting? Demand forecasting is a necessary to measure the demand accurately in terms of quantity and value for the several purposes. Means it's a demand forecasting means assumption of the future for taking the decision. What we want to assume relating to the demand, relating to the accuracy, how many goods that marketing is required. So this demand forecasting will accurately measures how much quantity is required in order to serve the supply into the market. What do you mean by unit velocity? The velocity means responsiveness of change. Already we know. So the velocity of demand means it is unit when the change in the demand is equal to the change in the price. Unit velocity means equality. So one change in the demand equal to the reflecting the one change in the price, we'll call it as unit velocity. Means one particular thing, what is the change in the demand to the change in the price, we'll call it as a unit elasticity. Define price elasticity of demand. So the price elasticity of the demand we can define as the responsiveness of the quantity demanded to the change in the income is called as income elasticity of the demand, while that to the price it is called as price elasticity. Means the quantity changes in relating to the goods produced. So they give additional income. So that when it relates to the price of a particular product, then we'll call as price elasticity. Means change in the price related to the change in the quantity demanded. Simply we can say change in price related to the change in quantity, then we'll call it as the price elasticity of demand. Next, define income elasticity of demand. Income elasticity of demand refers to the sensitivity of quantity demanded for a certain goods which changes the real income of the consumer who buys this goods. Means the income elasticity means change in the income of the consumer, maybe excess or maybe less, more or less due to the sensitivity change in the quantity demanded, we'll call it as income elasticity of demand. What is cross elasticity of demand? Cross elasticity of demand in economic concept we can say that the measurement of responsiveness in the quantity demanded of one goods when the price of another goods changes. Means when we can say cross, maybe one is used for the other. So the cross elasticity of the demand, where we can say complementary goods and substitutes. So substitutes means alternatives. Substitute means alternatives. Complementary means one is required to purchase the other. So when one quantity changes, the price of the demand of the another will also changes. We'll call it as cross elasticity of demand. What do you mean by the advertising elasticity? Advertising elasticity measures the advertising campaign effectiveness in generating the new sales. So the advertising elasticity means the promotional cost. Based upon the promotional cost, what sort of changes was taken place in the expenditure and also the sales will comes under the advertising elasticity. So this advertising elasticity could be calculated by dividing the percentage of change in the quantity demanded by the percentage of the change in the advertisement expenditure. Means what sort of change in the advertisement expenditure takes place with the change in the demand, or due to the advertisement, what percentage of change in the demand was taken place. We'll call it as advertisement elasticity. This is also called as promotional elasticity of demand. What is income elasticity of demand? Income elasticity of the demand is measurement of how the responsiveness of the quantity changes in the demand of goods and services due to the change in the income of a particular consumer. So the demand for some goods will increases and some goods will be decreases based upon the income of the consumer increases and decreases. So the calculation of these changes, we'll call it in case of income as income elasticity of demand. What is arc elasticity of demand? So the concept of arc elasticity is the elasticity of demand is change in one variable which we can measure with respect to the another between a given 2 point. Means here the elasticity or the responsiveness of the change in the demand is measured between the 2 points, which we'll call it as arc. Means between these 2 points, maybe 2 period, we can say 1st January to the 31st January, or maybe January 30 days to the February. So when we calculate between the 2 points or the 2 arcs, what are the changes we identified in one variable where we can measure is called as arc elasticity of demand. What is segmentation in marketing? So segmentation in the marketing could be defined as it is an activity which is intended to segment the demand of a product among those who are either aware of it nor interested in it. Means here when marketing activities are conducted, we are intended to see that demand for a product or other goods where we have neither, means we don't know what is the goods, what is the demand, or who are interested in it. When we calculated unrelated products, demand factors and other, we'll call it as stimulation in the market. Define test marketing. Test marketing, it is a method which aim to explore the consumer response to a product or marketing campaign or making it available on limited basis to test the market before wider release. So simply we can see testing or before launching of any sort of product, just we'll use some sort of samples in the market to identify that whether the consumer is liking their goods or not. So that we'll call as testing the market. So here intentionally we can say like test market means it is a method where we want to identify or measure the consumer attitude or the response by making it available in a limited basis before releasing that product into the market. What is consumer survey method? So as we know, consumer means who was interested to purchase or buy a product. Survey means collecting the information. So in demand forecasting, it is one of the important method, that is consumer survey method, which means efforts are made to collect the relevant information directly from the consumer regarding their future purchase plans. Means we'll collect the information, we'll talk directly to the consumer and we'll collect the information from him, what he want to do in the future or which goods he was interested to purchase in the future, or his future planning purchase could be identified in the consumer survey method. Next, Delphi method, define Delphi method. The Delphi method is a process which is used to arrive a group of opinion, means collecting the group of opinions or group of people's opinions or decisions by surveying a panel of experts. Means relating to the any product, when I have been involved by making a group of people to study the different analyses and exhibit their opinions relating to the product or the services or relating to the any sort of problem. Means when a group of experts gives their opinion relating to the product, demand, services or anything, then that calculating or that analysis we'll call it as Delphi method. What is trend analysis? Trend analysis is a technique used to examine and predict the movement of an item based upon the current and historical data. Means trends means what will be happen. So in the future or maybe the next moment that I want to analyze or the predict. How I can analyze? By examining what happened the same situation in the last year, or maybe examining should be done based upon the present situation or past data available. Means any calculation or making assumption for the future, taking the analysis of the past data or historical data. Define smoothing technique. Smoothing technique is also one of the statistical technique used for the demand forecasting. So it is a short-term forecasting technique which is frequently used in production and inventory environment when only the next period of value is required to be forecasted. Means it is used basically in the production process relating to the inventory forecasting, means raw material forecasting related to the how much we require in the next processing period. Means based upon the external demand forecasted, we go for assumption of how much raw materials or inputs is required in the next producing process or the producing period. Explaining barometric technique of demand forecasting. Barometric forecasting is used for the past demand to predict the future demand. Means based upon the past data, I want to predict the future demand of a certain product. We'll call it as barometric forecasting. And it is different from trend analysis by using the combination of factors called as indicator to gauge the demand. Means not like examining the past trends and future trends. It is also like calculating the future with the help of past, but taking some indicators. Means leading and lagging indicators. Means past what happened, future what happened. Due to some factor, how the demand will increase or decrease will identified in the barometric technique. Explain economic technique method of demand forecasting. Means econometric technique. So this method involves in using of mathematical formulas to predict the future consumer demand. Means future customer demand is predicted once with the help of mathematical analysis or mathematical formulas. So these mathematical formulas or this method is help us to exhibit the relationship between various economic factors which affect the demand for certain company's product. Means this method is very useful for analyzing the economical analysis which affects the demand of certain company's product. What is a moving average method? So moving average method or the technique is calculated like overall trend in a data set. Means in a trends what is happening when already the data was set. So in this the new or current events are added, we'll call it as moving average method. So in operational management, data set is sales volume from historical data of the company. Means it is a famous moving average method used in the operational research studies where we considered as sales volume, past volume what we have been sold as taken as a historical data. Based upon that, by evolving the current events into the past data, we'll calculate the forecasting, which we'll call it as moving average method. What is the definition of supply? So supply is what it is an important factor in case of demand. We used to say that exact demand forecasting is needed in order to know how much goods are supplied in the market. So we'll analyze the definition of supply, saying that the economic concept that describes the total amount of specific goods or some services which are available to the consumers. Means supply means the goods or services which is available, ready to market or available in the market or available to the consumer, we'll call it as supply. What is point and arc elasticity of demand? So already we know the elasticity of the demand means responsiveness of the change of demand. So here point elasticity of demand means it is a method of measuring the elasticity at a finite point of a demand curve. Means measuring the demand between a two finite point, means two places, known places. With that, when I measure the responsiveness of the change in one factor with the responsiveness change of the other factor between 2 points, we'll call it as point elasticity. Maybe 10th point to the 15th point, means between 2 points when we measure the changes takes place in the demand and its factors, we'll call it as point elasticity of demand. And the next type of demand is arc elasticity. Means arc elasticity measures a central point of an arc between two pair of points on a demand curve. Means in any sort of demand curve, a pair of demand means from here set of points to the another set of point, means arc. What is a dimension of the change taken place in measuring the change in the price to its determinants or in a demand curve, we'll call it as arc elasticity of demand. Explain law of supply. Law of supply says that higher the price will leads to the consumer to supply a higher quantity of the goods in the market. Means if price is more, the producer want to gain more amount of the profits and he want to produce more goods and supply the goods more at the market. So that's why it says that when price is higher, it leads the producer to get higher quantity in the market or place higher available quantity in the market. Define supply function. Supply function is a numerical portrayal of the association between the amount expected, that is quantity demand of a product or services, or maybe its value and its related factors. Means the supply function states that how that the quantity or the supply of certain product will be affected based upon its factors. Means the factors of the supply may be like demand of a product or service of a product, its value, or maybe other related things. Means relating the change in the quantity demand in the market based upon its internal factors, we'll call it as supply function. Define elasticity of supply. So the supply elasticity or the price elasticity of the supply where we are able to measure the degree of responsiveness of the quantity supplied to the change in the price of a given commodity. Means what sort of percentage changed in the quantity supplied to the market to the percentage of change in the price of a given commodity. We'll call it as elasticity of supply. So these are the some of the definitions or the important keywords which we can come across in the concept of demand and supply. Thank you.
Like, share and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.